Several years ago, a TV station in Houston decided to strengthen its signals by erecting a new, taller 1,000-foot transmission antenna in Missouri City, Texas. The station contracted with the TV antenna design firm to design the tower. The resulting design employed 20 50-foot segments that would have to be lifted into place sequentially by a jib crane that moved up with the tower. Each segment required a lifting lug to permit that segment to be hoisted off the flatbed delivery truck and then lifted into place by the crane. The actual construction of the tower was done by a segment rigging firm that specialized in such tasks. When the rigging company received the 20th and last tower segment, it faced a new problem. Although the lifting lug was satisfactory for lifting the segment horizontally off the truck, it would not enable the segment to be lifted vertically. The jib crane cable interfered with the antenna baskets at the top of the segment. The rigger asked permission from the design company to temporarily remove the antenna baskets and were refused. The officials at the design firm said that the last time they gave permission to make similar changes, they had to pay tens and thousands of dollars to repair the antenna basket, which had been damaged on removal, and to remount them, realign them correctly. The rigger devised a solution that was seriously flawed. They bolted an extension arm to the tower section and calculated the size of the required bolts based on a mistaken model. A sophomore-level engineer student who had taken the course in statistics could have detected the flaw, but the riggers had no engineers on their staff. The riggers, knowing they lacked engineering expertise, asked the antenna design company engineers to review the proposed solution. Engineers again refused, having been ordered by the company management not only not to look at the drawing, but also not to visit the construction site during the lifting of the last segment. Management of the design firm feared that they would be held liable if there were any accidents. The designers also failed to suggest to the riggers that they should hire an engineering consultant to examine their lifting plans. When the riggers attempted to lift the top section of the tower with the microwave basket, the tower fell, killing 7 men. The TV company was taping the lift of the last segment for future TV promotions. The videotape shows the riggers falling to their death. How would you react to watching this tape if you were the design engineer who refused to look at the lifting plans, or if you were the company executive who ordered the design engineer not to examine the plans? In this video, we will answer the questions of what concepts of responsibility seem most prevalent in this case, and suggestions of other concepts that might have helped avoid
The question is what went wrong and who is at fault for the 1,000-foot antenna that fell and killed 7 men. Is it the rigging company who specialized in television antennas, or the television antenna design firm? Let's start with the rigging company first. The rigging company had to make a tough decision when they realized they could not put up the last segment of the tower without altering their equipment. They believed removing the antenna baskets off the jib crane would fix their problem, and so they asked the permission of the design company. The design company said no to the riggers because of the cost. So the rigging firm decided to bolt an extension arm on the equipment. They had no engineer overlooking the project and built it using miscalculated sized bolts because they thought they had a different model crane. I believe because they did not consult with any engineers, they are partly at fault for the accident. They should have demanded the design company let them remove the baskets or had an engineer overlook their extension arm. Although the riggers are at partial fault for the accident, the design company is mostly at fault. The design company is at fault because of 3 things. Number 1, they did not allow the riggers to remove the antenna baskets because they claimed it cost tens of thousands the last time they did it. They should have looked further into the issue because they hurt themselves more by ignoring the problem. Second, when the rigging company had built the extension arm, they asked the design company to review their plans, but the design firm would not look at the plans or go to the construction site. Third, they failed to mention to the rigging company that they should hire an engineering consultant to examine their lifting plans. The design company is at fault because they ignored the rigging company's need of their help. They did not help the rigging company because they were in fear that an accident might happen and did not want to be held liable. The officials at the design company told the design engineer to not contact the rigging firm. This makes me believe the officials at the design firm are mostly at fault for the accident.
In consequence of the radio tower falling due to the ignored proper safety measures, 7 men were killed. Aside from the moral issue of the loss of life, their deaths will inevitably result in lawsuits from the families of the men who were killed. In addition to this, malpractice lawsuits will be issued to the design engineer for not overseeing the workers who modified the crane improperly to be able to hoist the last section of tower. To make matters worse, while the final section was being placed, the radio station was filming the whole operation to use for future advertisements. They caught the 7 men falling to their deaths on film. This footage will inevitably be used as evidence in an ethics-based court case against the design engineer for his or her actions for not being proactive to be sure that safety was still the top priority. Aside from the engineer's failure to adhere to this code of ethics, this will also devastate the engineering firm he or she worked for allowing such practice of belligerent malpractice. This will hurt them in a similar fashion to Volkswagen's case in regards to the recent emissions crisis. This disaster will also devastate the radio stations for 2 reasons. One, they will no longer be getting a new radio tower, and by the power of word association, they will be partially blamed for the 7 men's deaths in the public eye. The design engineer is also responsible for millions of dollars in damages from lawsuits and from physical damage from the tower falling. Specifically speaking, the design engineer isn't the only one at fault, but he or she was the overseer and was supposed to be held more responsible. And by the code of ethics that the engineer is supposed to adhere to, they have violated at least 4 different commandments from the code of ethics. Holding safety and health and welfare of the public paramount. Engineers shall advise their clients or employers if they believe that the project will be successful or not. Engineers are encouraged to also adhere to their sustainable beliefs in order to protect the environment and future generations. And lastly, engineers shall confirm the state of registration laws and protect of engineering.
What could have been done differently to avoid this calamity? Both the design company and the riggers were at fault here. For starters, the riggers did not ensure that they had the proper equipment to mount the antenna. If they had made sure that they had brought the proper crane, they would not have needed to go through and come up with a solution for their problem. This would have avoided the tragedy that fell that day altogether. If they had simply made sure that they brought the right tools to do the job, none of this would have happened. Secondly, they proceeded without ensuring that their design was safe. If they had taken the necessary precautions to ensure that what they were doing wasn't going to get anyone hurt by pursuing the design company for further support with their engineers, or finding some other company to help them in their engineering needs, then again, this will have been prevented and safety will have prevailed. The design company, however, is a little bit more at fault, as they have the ethical code to worry about with the engineering, as far as engineering is concerned. For starters, they didn't specify what kind of equipment was needed to mount the antenna. If they had specified what kind of crane was needed, then the engineers would not have brought the wrong crane to do the job. And as I mentioned earlier, they would have actually wouldn't have needed to modify the antenna anyway. The second way in which they are false is that they weren't even allowed, or they didn't look at the designs. They didn't send anyone out there. The officials decided that their pocketbooks were more important than the safety of the public. This is unacceptable, and this is ultimately what ended up making the design fail. A very someone with very limited engineering expertise could have seen that the bolts that they were using were not capable of holding the weight. The company, however, didn't even take a look at what the riggers were trying to do, and therefore the antenna fell down and killed 7 men. And lastly, they didn't even suggest that an engineering console should be sought out. This would have been beneficial for both parties, as the engineering company would not have to worry about the lawsuits that may ensue, because they would not be directly involved. It would be some other third party, and the riggers would actually have a professional to look over their plans. So in conclusion, both sides are at fault here. Ultimately, it befell the engineers to ensure safety, and that simply did not happen.
Design engineers were told to refuse to look at the design idea that the rigging company came up with. The tower fell and killed 7 people. The overseer's refusal to allow the engineers to help is similar to a physician who examines a patient and finds something suspicious in an area outside of their own specialty. When asking advice from a specialist, the specialist does not give the physician any advice on the grounds that they themselves might be subjected to a liability. Furthermore, the specialist does not suggest that the patient should see a specialist. The engineers from the design company are also breaking the first fundamental canon in the engineering code of ethics for not even suggesting that the rigging company hire an engineer that would help them. But both the rigging company and the TV antenna design company are at fault for the tower falling. The rigging company did try to get help, but they were unable to find anyone that would agree to help them. However, the riggers also should have double-checked their designs and made sure that they had the right make and model, instead of relying on the design company engineers to look at their plans for any faults. Due to this, the TV company lost millions of dollars in both property damages and lawsuits from the families of those that were killed by the falling antenna.